if you're ready, and you can start after 1 minute. Yeah, I'm setting YouTube right now. So it's almost there. So you can start in 1 minute. Hong, can you raise your volume a little bit? Thank you. And you can start.
All right. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Asian Americans Network on Godfather. We are going to have a very special event tonight. So this is February is Black History Month, and we have a special guest for tonight for you, and we will get to that. So Asian Americans Network is a room that meets every Tuesday night, starting at 6:30. We set up the room so that we can come together, everybody, and share our stories, share our experience, and learn from each other and support each other. People can find each other, in this room and follow up and do things together, pursue business or do other things together. That's the intent of this room. The room was started by some folk here in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, but it's for everyone. It's clearly, of course, for Asian Americans as well as anybody who appreciate Asian cultures or work with Asians. And often we do
Hong,
have...
I'm sorry. Marvin, can you mute your microphone? Yes, everyone get on stage. First thing is to mute yourself. You only turn on the microphone when you're talking. So Marvin, can you mute yourself? I heard some background noise.
Oh, yeah. Right. For folks on stage, yes. Thanks. Until you speak, please mute yourself. Thank you. So very good. With that, I'm going to start introducing a few folks here, the moderators. Folks who are moderators have a green circle next to them. We will introduce them in turn. But the most important person, before that, I just wanted to introduce Sandy, one of the moderators who will set the room for us on Clubhouse and then go through introductions. Sandy, would you like to set the room for us? You're on mute, Sandy. Just so you. Hey, Sandy, are you there? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, you're good now.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Asian Americans Network. I would like to say thank you to the Roy, and we are very honored to have you be our guest speaker today. And I also want to thank Chris for the coordinating and make this happen. And today's event is a total of 1 hour. We will open Q&A after the guest sharing. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or if you want to echo or make a comment. So we will invite you to the stage. So please follow us by clicking the greenhouse beside the name. You will get the upcoming event details information after we post it each time. So I'm going to give you a very brief introduction about the organizer. So this event is presented by Silicon Valley Innovation Channel, Ding TV, and the Silicon Valley Community Media and the Mentoring Club. So in past 12 years, Ding TV has been focusing on brand building innovation and connecting entrepreneurs and venture capitals. So Ding TV has hosted more than 80 events every year. Silicon Valley Community Media is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping and empowering and uniting Asian Americans. So I'm going to pass the microphone to Lisa to introduce the mentoring club. Thank you very much. Lisa, please.
Thank you, Sandy, and good evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. I am Lisa Mendoza, and I am the founder of the Mentoring Club, and it's a pleasure and honor to be partnering with Diana and Sandy and Paul and Ding TV for this room. The Mentoring Club is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders so that anywhere in the world, we help working people find mentors who can guide them to develop the skills they need to achieve their career and life goals. We help mentees fulfill their goals through meaningful work that creates positive impact in the world. And our long-term vision is that as mentees themselves, and our dream is for them to become mentors to others. Back to you, Hong.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone. I would like to also acknowledge here Diana Ding, founder of Ding TV and also founder of the Asian Americans Network on Clubhouse. Thank you. Thanks everyone. All right, with that, this is February is Black History Month, and to celebrate Black History Month, we have a very special person tonight, especially for us with roots and experience in Silicon Valley. We have Roy Clay Sr., because we do have his sons here, and we will get to them as well. Roy Clay Sr., who is widely known, celebrated as the Godfather of Silicon Valley. Roy, who is 93 years old this year, that's not a secret, was the first Black executive at Hewlett Packard and a member of the founding team of a founding member of their computer division, and who led the team to create the company's first mini computer. And he went on to do many other celebrated things with the city of Palo Alto, as well as with VC investors in Silicon Valley. Very, very established within the community here. Has been celebrated by the Computer History Museum, as well as Silicon Valley engineering community into their Hall of Fame. With that, I do want to mention right now, and we will hear from them as well, the three sons of Roy. First of all, Roy Jr., and then Rodney and Chris, and other folks who are here. So we are very excited to have them here and share their story. Now, without further ado, Roy Sr., welcome and thanks so much for coming to talk to us. Any opening statement from you, please? Thanks for joining us. Roy? You are on mute in case you can hear me. You are on mute.
Okay, can you guys hear us?
Yes.
This is Rodney Clay, Roy's middle son. I have Roy Clay Sr. here next to me, who would like to say a few words. And first of all, I personally would like to thank all of you for inviting us to this room. And I'll let my father say a few words as well, then I'll chime back in as needed. Okay, Dad, say a couple things.
I want to thank you for inviting me to be here. And to say what I think. Very nice, thank you. I really agree with you tonight. And I will do what I can to be honored to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Rodney is coming next to Roy Sr. to help convey any of the messages.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Would you like me to mute my mic?
Yes.
Or would you like to?
Unless you want to speak, please, yes.
I just wanted. I'll keep it real brief. I wanted to again thank all of you for this opportunity to learn about us and hear our story, a part of our story. I'll let you guys know that my mother was the great inspiration for this book, Unstoppable, being written. She told my father years ago, before her death, before her passing, that his story was one that should be shared and written. So he started documenting this 40 years ago at her request. She wanted the purpose of that to inspire the youth coming up who needed in need of a role model or support, and to see that it's been in spite of all the hurdles that my father faced, that it can be, they too can do the same thing and achieve the same goals, if not more than my father has. So that being said, again, thank you all very much, and I'll unmute as if asked to do so. Thank you.
Yes, and that takes me to the first thing before I go into questions. That takes me to the first announcement that some of the folks here will be sharing with the audience tonight, which is, there is a new book coming out about the life of Roy Clay here. And the book is titled Unstoppable. It's going to be coming out soon this year. And there is talk about a movie coming out later in the following years. With that, I mean, we are in now February is Black History Month. The importance of that is, our normal, the history that is normally taught, as you know. I mean, we have all these fights back and forth about how much you've been taught in school, and if we just follow the normal course of event, then things that have to do with the Black community or any minority community, that kind of history would be overlooked. And for Silicon Valley, for innovation, if we overlook Roy's story, for example, that will be a loss of everyone in terms of what happens within Silicon Valley and the history of Silicon Valley itself. And we're going to find some of that tonight through the questions and answers. There is a book coming out, and if you press on my photo, you will see a link to a landing page that talks about that book coming out. All right. Without further ado, I have prepared a number of questions to get started, and after that, we will open the room to include everybody, absolutely everybody here, to chime in, share your experience, your perspective on things, and then ask any questions of the folks here. So my first question is this. Silicon Valley conjures visions of technology and how technology saves the world. Okay, that's the dream. That's a shared dream here in Silicon Valley. Or at least technology will make the world run better. Okay. So with Roy Sr. here as the godfather of Silicon Valley, please share with us, Roy, was that true that technology saved the world back then? And is it true now? Does technology save the world?
Okay, let's see. You want me to take that? Okay, this is Roy Jr. Basically, first of all, I just speaking for my father, because he's at age 93. It's a little difficult for him to express ideas, but in any case, basically, he would say that, I mean, his career goes all the way back to really the 1950s, when he studied mathematics, with the idea that mathematics was going to be, was the key to really being able to understand everything and to create, the technologies of the future. This was years before. This was probably 3 decades or 2.5 decades before Silicon Valley even got started. But his big was that if you start with the basics, it will take you essentially as far as you could ever need to go. Now, his really technological history kind of began with, he was, of all things, doing research, modeling the effects of radiation after a nuclear explosion in a populated area at Lawrence Livermore Labs this is way back in the late 1950s. And he was doing computer modeling essentially for, what the results would be. And that step in his career was essentially a pathway that led him next to Control Data Corporation, where he did even more work with computer programming, and then eventually from there to Hewlett Packard. And I guess to address the question more directly, he would say that in reality, technology, because it springs from math and science and everything else, ultimately would be a solution to just about everything. Not everything, obviously, but just about everything that we have within our hands, the capability of addressing major problems in the world, addressing needs, and it's only through progress year after year and continued development. I mean, the idea that we have, that the internet has exploded into what it is, and that it's based on the use of a number of high-level programming languages. All of those have their roots in the earliest programming languages going back, several decades. But in any case, just to sum it all up, I think that he would say that basically technology really does have the capability of saving the world for many reasons.
Thank you, Maury, for sharing that. For those here who don't know the Clay family, the three sons have been working with Broadway Senior for a very long time. They did in Roy Senior's company, which is a technology company. And thanks for sharing that. I mean, someone somewhere needs to have hope. To have hope and share that hope regarding, solutions to our problems, and technology does present some solutions. And thanks for sharing that with us tonight. My second question is the Silicon Valley is widely perceived. I mean, we are here, we are proud of Silicon Valley, so it's widely perceived as the center of technological innovations in the world. So was it Silicon Valley was the center of the universe in terms of technological innovation, and is it today still? If so.
Okay. Let me take that question also, and I guess try to put it in the perspective of what my father would say. Absolutely, definitely, 100%. Silicon Valley is the technological center of the universe. If you go back to years before there was even officially a Silicon Valley, a lot of it began with the location of Stanford University, and the fact that if you go back through the decades, so many great minds that came out of Stanford. I mean, the founders of Google, and I believe both Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard came from Stanford, and these were all PhDs that came out of Stanford and started, created huge innovations in technology. With the growth of Stanford, literally from the 1890s all the way through, the town of Palo Alto sprang up, and as I'm sure everyone knows, there are a number of companies that really began right here in Palo Alto, and from there it kind of spread a little bit south through Mountain View and Sunnyvale and Santa Clara, Cupertino and San Jose, all those areas that used to be essentially fruit tree orchards up until about the early 1970s, when they figured out how to miniaturize the printed circuit. And it was essentially at that point that Silicon Valley, kind of as we know it today, was born. Companies sprang up all over everywhere, just basically creating the innards of the products, of the forerunners of the products that we use today. If you look at, companies like Apple, which is, I think by its market cap, the largest company in world history, its roots obviously are right here in Silicon Valley. And one thing that people often don't realize is that a lot of what happens in the high-tech industry is that some of the most famous technologies, some of the most well-known technologies that we use weren't actually invented by the companies that made them famous. They were already pre-existing, and then they were developed into a much more usable or user-friendly form, such as smartphones, of which really the iPhone was the very first one. It wasn't the very first interconnected telephone, but it was the first really complete one that everyone really enjoyed using. And go back, everything just kind of went crazy from there. And so if you look at everything that Apple did, along with all the other companies that really sprang up from right here in Silicon Valley, and then kind of went out to other parts of the world. There are other in other countries and other states. There are sort of what I would call miniature versions of Silicon Valley that have sprung up. I think in India, the equivalent would be Bangalore. Let's see, there are areas in Texas, I don't remember exactly which, Boston, Massachusetts. So there are little Silicon Valleys that have sprung up everywhere, but using ideas and innovations that began right here in Santa Clara Valley. Now, so the question is it still the center of the technological universe? I would say that it absolutely is, but the word center is changing, I think, in its definition. It used to be that we had to, in order to carry out an event, we had to be in a certain place and a certain time and a certain hour. Way back a few decades ago, if you wanted to see your favorite TV show, you had to be at home sitting in front of the TV when that show was on, or that was it. Okay. What's happening now is that technology is allowing everything to become decentralized. So that you think of the internet. In fact, right here, this very same meeting that we're carrying on, we can be in very different parts of the world. And make it seem like we're all, kind of in the same place, when in point of fact, we're meeting kind of outside of physical space and time. So the reason I say all that is that, well, all of these ideas began in Silicon Valley. The overall idea is that everything that we're doing is going to become eventually decentralized in one way, shape, or form. Beginning with using computers and all of the applications that computers make possible. Eventually one day we'll have something called holodecks, which is a concept from Star Trek Second Generation, which is an interesting idea, but the purpose of those, and they're probably about 15 years away, is that you will be able to sit in a room and be able to recreate any place at any time, in any scenario, any setting that you want, to the extent that it will become indistinguishable from actual reality. And that to create that actually consists of many different technologies that will be brought together, things that we can't even imagine now, in the same way that, 100 years ago, we wouldn't even imagine TV. Okay. And so things like that are based on a number of technologies that all began in Silicon Valley that will eventually become universal and change the way that everyone lives everywhere. So I hope I didn't ramble too much, but in a nutshell, it's this one.
Thanks, Troy. That's a wonderful perspective and a wonderful share. But if I hear you well, what you say, some of the folks here, you're talking about decentralization things.
Yes.
Basically, you're clearly, if I hear you correctly, are saying that decentralization, the metaverse, Web3, are key to our technology.
Yes, those essentially are keys to. There are leaps into where we will be if you look ahead a few decades, maybe 100 years, based on the rate of development of technology. When I say technology, I mean all technologies, but above all, computers and artificial intelligence. I think that the way the world will look, assuming that we don't wind up in World War III or whatever, will be immeasurably different from the way it is now. If you were to look back 100 years ago, or even 200 years ago, think of how different life would have been compared to the way it is now. And I think if you look ahead 100 years, it'll be exponentially greater than compared with the previous 100 years. In other words, where everything is increasing at an exponential rate. And in that way, that's the reason I say it'll be unrecognizable. I think mostly positive. There will be a lot of negative that we'll have to deal with. But the vast majority of it will be of, I think, of great use for everyone. I mean, this will apply to, things like there's a prediction that very soon artificial intelligence will take over basically every kind of job. I mean, literally, I'm talking about doctors, lawyers, engineers, coders, all of that will be, the capability will be to have all of that done by AI systems. There'll be a lot of bumps in the road along the way. But at the end of the road, the benefit will be that humans will no longer have to toil as much as we've had to for the last few thousand years of civilization. I mean, before there was electricity, people had to rise with the sunlight and basically spend 80% of their time hunting and gathering food. Okay, now we can walk into Safeway or Whole Foods or any restaurant, and everything is prepared for us. Okay, well, if we're freed from having to, to sit and do manual labor, to do things that, with our hands and even with our brains, that will eventually be capable of being done by computers or by AI systems, that will allow us to, I think, express our creative nature at a much deeper level. I think it will allow for the evolution of civilization at a very, very rapid rate, which essentially will be better for everyone. I mean, think of the way governments, companies, and everything, all those things are structured. Those models will all change. And it's kind of an optimistic way of looking at things, but I think it's the way that to be headed, according to the way that I see technology.
Thanks for sharing those very hopeful thoughts. That technology is still there's plenty more innovations ahead, much that is much more than has happened in the past, and those will come to be realized when they happen. They will help us solve problems that to us. I would like to switch to a different kind of question. Questions about participation, about access, and profession. So, again, tying back to Black History Month, and tying back to who you are, the place. In terms of STEM, if science and technology is going to change the world, we participate. So clearly there was a time when access and participation are not equal. They need to be equal. So was were access to STEM education and STEM careers problematic? How and will that stay so? How do you see that?
Hey, Ani, thanks for the question. This is Chris Clay, Roy Clay's youngest son. When you think about it, it's an interesting question, and we talk about a lot of this in his book. You think about it, so he's 93 years old today, Roy Clay Sr. That means he's basically seen 70 years, you go back to his early 20s when he started his professional career. He's seen 70 years of the evolution of technology and the workforce in the technology. He graduated from college, and then, as Roy mentioned, with a degree in mathematics right around the late 1940s. Very first job he applied for was a job in technology. It was a job at McDonald's in St. Louis. He was excited that he finally got a reply from a company that was interested in hiring somebody with a degree in math to work in technology for the company. He gets to the interview, walks into the interview room, and the interviewer looks at him with just a look of astonishment. And he says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Clay, but we do not hire professional Negroes." And this is grand. This is the late 1940s, maybe early 1950s. So STEM for African Americans at that time was non-existent.
completely non-existent. So if you fast forward, right, I think if you fast forward through his career, his first job at Donald Aircraft Corporation. Then he moved out to Livermore, did programming at Livermore Labs, did work at Control Rate Corporation. Still, one of the very few blacks in technology at that time. This is right around the 1960s. Now, right around this time, he was still working as a developer for Control Rate Corporation. He sees an ad for a job at Hewlett Packard Corporation. This is interesting to him because he knows that the job was for software developer. This is interesting because he knows that HP wasn't a computer company. They're a test and measurement company. So obviously that piqued his curiosity. He goes in for an interview. He sits down in the interview, and one of the very first interviews he has, this is the late 1960s, one of the interviews that he has at HP is with David Packard himself. Now, HP was a big company at the time. Big-ish for a technology company, it's a big company. He was the CEO, chairman of the board, but he wanted to sit down and have this interview. And what my father says, and it still resonates with all of us to this day, is that in that interview room, it was clear to him that David Packard and Hewlett Packard, they didn't care if he was green. What they wanted was the best person for the job, regardless of color. In fact, that was an active practice for HP back in those days. Was we're gonna go out, we're gonna look at these historically on search for job markets. We're gonna find fantastic people that all these other companies are overlooking. So that was really kind of a turning point in HP, being a bellwether technology company. That was kind of a turning point, and they were kind of a flagship company that really led the charge in developing STEM for African Americans. And of course, my father, he continued that practice at HP and as an African American executive, and he continued to practice to just keep the door open for everybody of every underrepresented race. And that obviously that goes on today. It's much bigger today. But one of the things that's noteworthy from the late 1970s, and we were just talking about this in our preparation call, was that he founded his company, Rodell Electronics, in Menlo Park, California, late 1970s. And we, Rodney and Roy Jr. and I, we all worked there. We're all employees there. And at the peak, the company had about 40 employees. And one day we were sitting in a company-wide meeting, and we just looked around the room and said, the room was literally half African American and half people of Asian descent. So it was a literal, and of the Asian descent, there was a variety of countries and cultures that were represented, but it was a literal melting pot. And it wasn't about hiring people of a certain, it was about hiring the best person for the job. That's something that has stuck with him and he's instilled with us to this. Now, if you look at where we are today, he's out of the workforce, obviously. I work in business development for a technology company, SAP, and it's fantastic to see what technology companies are doing in terms of outreach and underrepresented markets and underrepresented talent, like struggling back other traditional underrepresented talent. It's absolutely fantastic to see the groundswell of employees coming in at various levels. The one thing that I'll say is we still need more representation in technology companies at the senior management level. But at the end of the day, it starts with this growing pool, which I think a lot of companies are doing. And the theory is ideally that those pools of people that are hired in as young professionals will eventually kind of reach the ranks of senior management in the companies that they're hired. So we're on a great trajectory now. It's a lot better than it was in 1950, and hopefully it'll be a lot better in 20 years, 30 years down the road.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for sharing that. Wonderful. For those who just joined us, I want to remind you. So tonight with practice, we are celebrating and benefiting from a lifelong, a very long life experience of Roy Senior, Roy Clay Senior, and there's three sons, Roy Junior, and
Rodney and Chris.
Rodney and Chris being the youngest.
Gotcha.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Chris, because that as you were saying that, I mean, what I'm getting out of it is people normally think of, DEI, diversity, equality, inclusion. They think in terms of, doing somebody's a favor because they are, disadvantaged. But you couch it in a very different way. That is, if you want the best talents, you end up with diversity. That's a very different view of what people normally think of the whole issue. And what normally being touted as meritocracy actually doesn't do the job because of conscious or unconscious biases, right? Yeah. So yeah, for the advancement of technology and society, we need to keep an open mind because our subconscious biases will not lead us to the best, selection of teammates and and work on innovations. All right. And so with that ties into my pure answer to my next question, which is right. So the best people with the best skills, I think the core skill that is required is the critical skill of critical thinking. Asking, the right questions. Why, so what, and all these things. So with that, let's apply those questions to STEM education and careers. Now that people say, some famous VCs are saying, the college degree is overblown and has no real value and things like that. So STEM education and STEM career, are they important? So what? I mean, can people just get on and do great work without education and formal careers? Any thought on that?
Yeah, I'll that maybe when Rodney can chime in if they'd like to. It's interesting because there's certainly certain things that you can learn from a skills perspective that don't require a college degree. So we've all seen it. We've all seen the college dropouts that go on and start companies like Facebook. So you can certainly make it without a college degree. If you've got the right skill set and you've got the aptitude to work day and night to learn something outside of the classroom, absolutely. The one thing that our parents instilled in us was the value of education. From day one, we've all got college degrees, two of us had master's degrees. And it was not going to college, not getting an education was never an option for us. And two of us are scientists, the other one of us is a business and marketing person. But the value that they saw in it was much more than learning a trade, learning technology, learning whatever it is that you wanted to have a career. The value is learning life skills, learning how to assimilate and associate and coordinate and work with people and do the sorts of things that you don't do when you're living at home. You don't do it when you're in high school. You do those sorts of things when you're first out living on your own, when you're working on class projects where everybody else, depending on everybody that's working on that project to carry their share of the weight to get the project to the line, which is an exact replication that you'll see with that people see when they get out into the workforce. And I think that certainly applies to STEM as well. I mentioned the idea that it's great that companies are diversifying their workforces, especially with new hires and college kids straight out of college, or that are just entering the work world, I should say. But the ones that come out of that don't come, from several years of college, I think are at a disadvantage because they will not have learned some of the skills that I just mentioned that you learn in college. And the only way you learn them is by kind of being collaborators, being co-workers, and learning how to be an adult. If you go from the smartest person in the world with the best programming skills in the world, the greatest technologically aptitude in the world at 18 years old, he can never just walk into an existing company and raised to be ready to work his way up to CEO. That's just extremely unlikely to happen. I mean, he might be able to start a company and work his way up that way, but you won't have the skills needed to really excel in business, be it technology or not technology.
Right. So, thanks for sharing that perspective. Absolutely unique. I mean, clearly there's a raging debate about the value of an expensive, for that matter, college degrees, and so you're putting the accent on learning to collaborate, learning to work with others, because that's what work has become, and it's not just inborn in humans. We need to learn it and practice it.
And the one last thing that I'll say, because you mentioned the price of college, the one thing that I'll add, the caveat that I'll add to that is, to me, I mean, from my experience and from the people that I've met in the 30 years plus years I've been in the work world, the college that they went to is really a non-determining factor. I've met some of the best and brightest people that went to 2 years of junior college and then went to the smallest college that nobody's ever heard of, and who are fantastic. And I've met people that have graduated from Ivy League cool schools that aren't quite as that fantastic. So I think the quality of the education that a person gets out of school is less dependent on the school and more dependent on the person. And my father's always said the same thing.
Chris, this is Rodney. I hope you guys don't mind me chiming in. This is Rodney Clay, Roy Clay's middle son. Just to dovetail off what Chris was saying, well, my father and my mother always emphasized to us the importance of education. They never stood over our head with a whip and said, "You guys must get a degree." He pretty much left that up to us. Roy and Chris took different paths than I did. Roy and Chris pretty much went straight through. I kind of dawdled around, finally got serious after several years. My father never stood over me and insisted. He just said, "Look, as a minority, you're gonna have to be better than your Caucasian counterparts, and that includes getting a degree, which will at least put you at level ground with them." So I just wanted to just add that to what Chris was saying. Now, another thing that what my father, Roy Sr., always said was that getting a college degree teaches you how to start something and finish it. And along with what Chris was saying, it's a lot more than just learning the educational things. It's learning the life, like as my brother Chris was saying, learning the life skills. How to schedule your time, how to be punctual, how to be responsible. There's a lot more to education than just what you learn out of books. I'll turn the mic back over to you, Paul.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for reminding us. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, that education is learning how to learn. How do you learn yourself and experiment with that in a safe environment in college. There was a famous professor of a famous university. Somebody asked that professor, do you think your student will remember what you're teaching them this year? And the professor said, very probably not. They say that what are they paying for? And he said they pay to learn how to think. So yeah, thanks for shining the light on that topic. My last question here before opening the room is, okay, so Roy Sr. has been celebrated by, one of the key employer of his early years, Hewlett Packard. He's been celebrated by Palo Museum here at the heart of Silicon Valley. He's been celebrated by the County of Santa Clara, by the Silicon Valley Engineering Council, who inducted him into their Hall of Fame. So all these people spoke out about Roy. So, but then now we are looking forward to his book, basically his whole voice of what he thinks. And looking forward to the book. Can you share with us what's in the book? So what does Roy Sr., after these many decades in Silicon Valley, things people want to know?
I'll start. This is Chris again, and then I'll let my brothers and whoever else wants to chime in. The book is a very important project. And as Rodney mentioned, the book's been on the top of his list of things to do and complete for a very, very long time. And he's super proud that it's at the finish line or near the finish line. And the book is a reflection of his life, and it's a reflection of his accomplishments and the things that he went through in his life. But it's also, probably more importantly, a reflection of his values and a reflection of his learnings and life experience. So if you look at the title, Life Experiences, I should say. So if you look at the title itself, it encapsulates three key themes in his life. So the title is Unstoppable, the Unlikely Story of the Silicon Valley Godfather. If you look at those three of those words, so unstoppable, it's a reflection of his undeterred commitment to success. I mentioned the story of being told that he couldn't be hired at a company because of his color in 1950, but did not let that deter him from accomplishing his goals as a technologist and as a technology person. Unlikely reflects the hurdles that he had to overcome throughout his life journey, be it professional or from a personal perspective. And then Godfather Godfather in the context of this title is not meant to be a boastful term. It's not meant to be I started the world term. It's really meant to be a reflection, one, of his contributions to technology, but then also, and more importantly, his contribution to truly diversifying kind of the world of technology and the workforces that we see in technology today. We mentioned that started back in 1969, where he was one of the first to come into Hewlett Packard, and then he opened the doors here at Hewlett Packard for others, and he opened the doors everywhere he's gone for others. So, it's much more than the simple telling of his life's events, like I said. It's really meant to be truly inspiring. And most important, we wanted to, and he wanted to write a book that was inspired, not only inspiring, but entertaining. We want people to read the book and be truly entertained by what they see and what they read.
If I might, this is Rodney again, the middle son. Just to dovetail off what Chris was just saying, we wanted to stay away from writing a typical biography or a history book. All that stuff is pretty well documented on the web. We wanted to read more of a novel, something that, like Chris was saying, they can read, they can be entertained by, they can laugh with, they can cry with, they can learn something from. This is more of a story about who is he, who was important in his life, the people that were the driving forces in his life, the importance of family to him. In fact, one of the things, the most important thing about my dad is not what he's done, it's the things that he's passed up. And then one of the things that he was offered numerous opportunities of being a CEO of corporations. And he said the reason he passed it up was because it would mean that if they called you at last minute and say, Roy Clay, you have to be in Paris tomorrow morning, he would have to pack up his bags and leave for Paris. Now that would mean that he would miss my baseball games. I was a little league baseball player. Chris was a soccer player. He would miss Chris's soccer games, and Roy was a classical pianist. He would have missed Roy's piano recitals. So the most important thing in my father's life was family and his dedication to it. And on my mother's deathbed, what the last thing she said was, "Roy, keep the family together." And if you see right now, her words are living through us as we speak.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, great. I would like to thank everybody here. Thanks, of course, thanks to the Clays for sharing their story, their family story, and Roy Senior story with us. Speaking for Roy Senior, who's 93 years old, just to remind everybody, clearly this is the story of Silicon Valley, a story of a Black person, a story of a person who's 93 years old now, looking back and looking forward, actually, for that matter. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. At this point, I'm going to start opening the door. With that, I do want to say something. It wasn't planned and announced entirely, but we are going to run all the way to 8 p.m. This is a unique occasion. We want to make the most of it. I did ask the Clays, and they agreed. So we are going to run all the way to 8 p.m. But of course, we respect that you may have your other priorities, and some of you may leave. But without further delay, I just wanted to ask Sandy to reset the room so we can now open up to everyone to join in. Thanks.
Thank you, Hong. Thank you very much. And thank you, Roy Senior and Roy Junior and Chris for the sharing. And so after the sharing, we are going to open the Q&A session. So please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or if you want to echo and make comments. So we will invite you to the stage, and we are going to invite you to unmute yourself. So please follow us by clicking the green house beside the name. You will get the upcoming event details information after we post it each time. Yeah, thank you very much. And I will pass the mic to Hong, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to say two things now. One is, if you look at the top of the room, you'll see a link to the YouTube channel where you will see you can find the recording of tonight's session, whatever we have recorded so far with the first part. And now, you can speak freely. We are not going to record you. I'm going to do the opposite of the normal sequence. So I'm going to follow the opposite my sequence so that the audience can get to speak before the speakers and the moderators. All right.